Hey guys, so Bob asked my wife Jessie and I to make a video to talk about women's role in ministry in the tribal ministry. So now that's what
He said support too.
Support too.
But we don't know a lot about that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I'm John Michael George. My wife Jessie. We work with the Haywood people in Papua New Guinea. We've been there since about 2011, early 2011. I'm currently home in the States on medical furlough. What do we call it now?
Medical leave.
Medical leave, home assignment. I don't know. Heading back in January. So women in ministry. I got a piece of paper here. This is totally off the cuff. We just put our kids to bed. We haven't prepared. Sorry, Bob.
Don't say that. You
So-
need to edit that out.
So we're shooting off the cuff here. So at least you'll know it'll be true. Not making any of this up. You want to start? I've got support roles with a question mark here, and I wrote nearly everything. Women aren't. I mean, they're on the base. So you have your bush missionaries, out in the field, and then you have your sport missionaries, typically living on the base, that take care of everything that has to be taken care of to keep the bush missionaries on the field working with the tribal groups.
Well, that's in Papua New Guinea what we've experienced, but it also depends on the mission center you're on and if there's a school available. In some of the mission centers, there's not school, and the support missionary women are homeschooling, and so it's kind of the same as the bush. That takes up most of their time, and they don't do as much. I mean, they're still doing a lot, but they can't do as much outside of the home and homeschooling as the men do, or the single women. So as far as single women in ministry, sometimes they do even more than a married man in ministry because they don't have the family
unencumbered.
Right. They're some of our best translators, and they do a lot of work. So we don't really know what to say to that other than the single ladies rock. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can say.
Lisa
other than
Kapler,
that,
out
you don't have
in
to
Seattle. Who was that? I'm giving names, man.
You don't have permission.
Linda
to use
Craig.
single
Look
ladies.
those peoples up.
Anyway, as far as in the bush, because that's been my biggest experience, is that I don't know. I guess ladies just do what they can. My biggest role with having 3 kids is homeschooling at this point. I think when your kids are smaller, if you're not in school, ladies can be out a lot more. Just because they can take the kids with them. Of course, then there's always nap times, and it seems like those little years are when the kids are sick more often. So then that keeps them, in the house a little bit more too. But there's a lot that can be done even when you're homeschooling. Most of the time, just spending time with the ladies after that school time has been huge for me. I just after school's done, I go and sit outside, and that's kind of when the ladies are coming in from their gardens, and that's when they're sitting outside, and that's the time we spend with them. So, as far as women in ministry, it really just depends on the woman and her situation, but it can be hard for ladies to feel like they're doing as much in ministry that looks like ministry, or that I guess most people would consider ministry, because a lot of their role is very important in the home. Without that, if you're not taking care of your kids, then that becomes a problem, and that can send you home. If you're not feeding your family, then that can cause you problems, and that can send you home. So all of the roles are important, and everything that women can do in ministry is vital, even though sometimes it's hard and the women can kind of struggle with that, with being in the home more. But every aspect of it is important to be there.
I'll chime in on that. My wife, obviously, I got to say this because she's sitting beside me, but I'd say it whether she was here or not. But an incredible mother, an incredible wife. It's hard to be a good spouse all the time, whether the husband or the wife. It's really hard to be a good spouse out in the bush. There's a lot of pressure, and there's nowhere. It's not like you had a bad day, so you said, "Oh, I'm going to go down to Target and let off some steam, or go to Starbucks, or anything really." You even just walking out your door, then you have a horde of tribal people that just want to come and be by you and hang out. So it's tough to be a good spouse. And when you're not a good spouse, when you keep being crabby or whatever, it's amplified out there. And so I just brag on my wife that she's incredible. And that's a huge part of our ministry out there, is the fact that she takes care of her kids. She takes care of me, somehow keeps us really well fed, even though, especially when we first got to Hewa, we were helicopter only location. We had flights once every 3 or 4 months. And, I mean, you imagine toilet paper, food, medicine, all that stuff you get once every 3 months. So imagine going to Walmart, not going back, or anywhere for that matter, for 3 months. As you get down the line and food starts going short, toilet paper starts going short, coffee starts going short, you can get pretty crabby, and it can make life pretty miserable, which in turn affects the ministry as a whole. So don't downplay that for your wives. If you're going to a tribal location or support or anything, don't downplay that role. It's, if the house, if your home life isn't right, then nothing else is going to work properly. A guy during our first year of marriage, was kind of a mentor in the ministry at the time, nearly 14 years ago, said something to me that stuck with me ever since. He says, ministry is everything, but family is your first ministry. And your wife will be a huge component to your family's ministry. So don't ever downplay that or look at it as less than it is. It is a first and foremost kind of thing. So yeah, that's a huge part of women's ministry. But also, you ladies are not confined to that house, as she mentioned. Not just our single ladies, but there's a lot of women, married or not, are involved with translation to different degrees. There's content checking, where you only got to be checked out to a certain level of language. There's the full-blown translation work where women have, despite all the other baggage, I hate to call it baggage, but your kids in your house and keeping everything going. It's not baggage. Despite all of those blessings.
The other ministry.
Yes.
You said it was ministry. Now you're calling it baggage. Somehow some of these ladies still manage to do really well in language and check out, sometimes even before the men who are doing it full time. Ladies, some of them are just gifted in those areas, and they are sometimes some of the sole translators. So it's nothing that says you can't do that. There's nothing wrong if you don't do that. There are some, you have to consider some cultural expectations depending on which country you're in, the culture. We have in PNG, it's very, man-centered.
Women are second class. I actually wrote that.
But we have, good job.
Right on.
We have, like we said, we had several ladies doing translation work. And you just have to work around that with translation helpers. And that may be something that, the lady can't be in like a office or something alone with the man, then she might need support, help from other ladies on the team or the other men on the team or something like that. So there are cultural things to take into consideration, but for the most part, what we've noticed in PNG anyway is that, that there's not a whole lot that the women can't be involved in.
Yeah. I wrote on here, culturally, men really can't closely disciple women. So going further into cultural stuff, women's ministry is a huge thing. Because without women there'd be this huge void.
And the family structure, is really important in any church, especially in a tribal church. It's very hard if, especially we're in the place right now where with our tribal work where we're getting ready to appoint deacons and elders, and it's really hard if they don't have a supportive wife. I mean, that's just something that, can disqualify them. So, and then it can harm the church. So if you want a thriving church for all people, then women ministering to the women in the, in the tribe and the cultural context is really important because you need those strong family units to have a thriving church.
Way to work in that new slogan. Yeah, so like for example in Haywa, if I'm going through the village, which I try to do, once a day, we're Grand Central Station where our house is, and so it's easy to get out into the village.
We live in the middle of the village.
Yeah, the middle of the village. So I would say I try to, and it makes me sound like a good missionary. Oh, I like to get out. Usually, I'm in, now that I've checked out a language and helping with translation, lesson writing, and teaching, all that. Usually, it's just sitting in my office. I need a break from that, so I go walk around and visit. But before I go into a house, I have to, stop. So, are you there? Anybody there? And if it's just a woman, I say, oh, okay, well, where's so and so? Where's this man? And so, oh, he's at the garden. He's here. And if it's just a woman, I can't even go in. Where typically I would go in and sit and talk and say, hey, what'd you think about what we talked about Sunday in church and this? But I can't do that with the ladies. So it'd be a huge void. I mean, literally half the village worth of a spiritual void there, ministry void, if women aren't involved. And it's a huge thing. Yeah. So.
And even culturally, the men obviously in the village can teach their wives and talk to their wives, but there are some cultural things that the men it's taboo to talk about. So, even to have that discipleship from their husbands is important, and, it's something that they can do, but it's really important for them to have other ladies that can disciple them for, things that the men don't, just because of culture, don't know anything about or feel like, they're uncomfortable talking about, so.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at my paper, which I wrote down right before we hit the record button.
Saying that.
Well, yeah. So basically, I think women's role in ministry, be it in support or in bush ministry, single or married, short of the, biblical restrictions, of not being the spiritual head of the church. Yeah, there's really nothing holding you back other than what culturally is held back or what the mission may put in place for, whatever reasons the mission may have. So
whatever's cultural,
Yeah, women in PNG, women can't go to town by themselves. And that's just a safety issue, which I'm sure you can figure that one out. But without women, like I said, we're looking at half of the ministry, half the church being without someone discipling them in a constant way. I don't know, in a productive way. So, yeah, it's a huge thing. That's the reason God made Adam and Eve, and He made them both in His image. We were both made to reflect the image of Him. And so without women in ministry, we would be only half the image of God. So we need the men, we need the women. Another one.
And their roles might look different, and that's okay.
It's totally okay. Yeah. All right.
All right.
We've been going for 13 minutes, 17 seconds. I think it's enough.
Yep.
See you later.